So I like reincarnation stories, videos on the internet that the YouTube algorithm hates now. Boy, this is a great camera. I have green eyes. Can you tell? Anyway, um, and I have four of mine. For the record, why not? So, the order in which Krishna says that there's no time, so you could actually be reincarnated as your grandfather, which is banana pants. Um, but I'm gonna do mine in order, I think, and I think the sequence actually is kind of useful. Um, so one day I was washing laundry, and I was passing the time waiting for some cycle or some such to complete, and I started doing this little, I don't know, some sort of dance, and as I was doing it, I had this melody in my head, and I started to go, okay. And as I shifted to another task, said to myself, how do I know this? I'm not musically inclined, so when do I know this melody from? And I was just kind of thinking about it and continuing doing my dance that I had done at one point, and kind of got back into it and started thinking, yeah, it was when I had this like long blonde straight hair that kind of ended here, and what was the environment? And it was like warehouse like, and there was a bunch of people around me, and there was no music, and I remembered that we all had to kind of just make up our own like melody to dance to, and so that's what everybody did. And so I'm remembering that, and I'm like trying to recreate playing with my hair. And yeah, it's when I had this long blonde hair, and I danced in this crowd, and I started to realize, my hands were not these hands. They were like thinner, and fingernails. And I do paint my nails sometimes, why not? But the long blonde hair, and I realized it was when I was on the Adam West Batman show as a backup dancer, and that's what you had to do. You had to make up your own little melody as a backup dancer on the Adam West show. And then I was like, well, and it was like a total natural memory, and so that was weird. And then my brother started looking up backup dancers on the Adam West show, and he got nowhere. And I started to tell him a little bit more about what I knew and how I thought it was like maybe a reincarnation memory. And the only reason why I thought it might be reincarnation memory is because I was not a girl on the Adam West show. And, if there is reincarnation, maybe this was a reincarnation memory. And I thought maybe that because I had a previous reincarnation story, possibly. So, anyway, the other fragments of memories that I might have from that is once again wearing like lace gloves, very small hands, a yellow dress, and being slutty, like a slutty person, and kind of like oddly tongue-in-cheek proud about it. So anyway, I remember my butt sliding on this 50s, 60s-ish leather seat in the back seat, and then I think my husband at the time, like, basically threw me out of the car, like, opened up the door and, like, shoved me out of the moving car, and I'm pretty sure the last thing I remember from that is headlights coming at my head because he was running me down with his car, and pretty sure that was my last life. 50s, 60s, and maybe the guy that killed me was the director of one of the Godzillas, like a really old Godzilla, and he was like way older than me, and I was his young trophy wife, I guess. So anyway, my previous memory of being alive was partially the reason why I don't drink, and I was an alcoholic Japanese Ronin samurai, something like that. Remember waking up underneath trees, feeling sick, like hangover sick, very, very bad, and then turning to this weird gourd and drinking some more rice wine. And like that's all I did, and it was disgusting. And I was killing myself, and I knew I was killing myself, and I didn't care I was killing myself because there was a lot of death in my life. And I almost remember very distinctly walking down a weird wall, and I know I was on the left of the wall, and there was a bush, and I remember some sort of red tassel. I had a red, and there was like this loopy thing and a tassel, and I remember little bits of yellow on my outfit, but my main colors were like black and like some sort of bee yellow accoutrement with some sort of red tassel I was very proud of. I don't know enough about Japanese history to know what I'm talking about, other than I was really fond of this black ceramic stuff I had. And when I drank, it wasn't just from the gourd. I had this little bowl I carried around, and it was like this little black, I guess it was my rice wine cup, but it was like a little saucer. Kind of like a mortar and pestle, but with like the bottom cut off. Anyway, these are just the things I remember, the images I have. And I remember distinctly walking down this, it's like a brown-ish dirt road, you know, like clay sand. It's just sandy, and it's a road, and it's next to this built wall that's gray. And, you know, I'm wearing all my gear, very heavy, platey insect stuff that my culture doesn't have. But it was armor. And then this guy comes running out. He comes running out between the cracks of the wall, the cracks of the bush, and he's wearing like this blue kimono with like this black trim around it. And sees me, starts yelling at me, and I'm kind of like really drunk and like I'm not quite sure what he's saying. He's not angry at me, but he's saying things that are piss off kind of. And I haven't even gotten near the entrance to the city or the town or whatever. And he's just freaking out, and then he just calmly stops and pulls out his sword. And it was the craziest thing I had ever seen. It was like the guy was an alien. And he didn't like, I was like, do you not understand that you pulled out your sword to me, and when you do that, you die, because now we're in a death match, and you just death match challenged me. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? And this kid was, I say kid, but he was in his 20s. Yeah, I almost cut him in half, from the, yeah, I realize now that he was probably what's the first of the cops. He was a cop, and he was like, apparently he was upset that I was walking around with a sword, and he had a sword, but I was the armor sword guy, and he was a kimono dark blue policeman, which I did not understand. Also, my ears, my headache was like thundering in my ears, and I wasn't listening to him, and I was of the kind of person that, and class, I guess, where you don't have to listen. I don't have to listen to you. I just do what the hell I want, and don't challenge me to death battles. That's really stupid. And that's exactly what he did. And I killed him, and then I couldn't go into the town. I couldn't get water. I needed water. And I don't know what happened after that. I just know I drank a lot, and I guess I killed the first of the Japanese cops order, and they were younger than me. I didn't understand. I don't think he understood what was going on either, you know, like challenging a soldier with a gun to a death battle in the middle. It was very strange for me at the time, and I feel very bad about that now. Got the feels. Okay, so there was that, and then there was the first reincarnation-ish memory I have, which is being a Roman, the second son of some sort of family who was shoved off to the military immediately. The first son gets stuff, I guess. The third son takes care of the parents. And the second son doesn't inherit jack squat. You go and you Viking, or in a Roman's case, my case, you just become a military guy. And so I was some sort of roving commander. And I want to say that I kept getting dispatched to Syria to take letters. My job, I was on a horse all the time. I had this big bag, and they were scrolls that came straight from the capital, straight from the Senate. I picked up the bag from the Senate, and I went and I dispatched to wherever I needed to. And I had enough military command power where I could round up dudes wherever I needed. You know, I arrived in Syria. I found a local garrison sitting on ass. I found their commander, and I said, I'm taking that guy, and maybe you. And we're going to go down to, you know, some sort of king or something like that, and grab all the soldiers I decide to, which are probably the palace guards and stuff, on the way, and then go deliver the message to the king with his own guards, which really work for me. Which don't work for me, they work for the Senate. And so I remembered, how I remembered that is I was kind of like the first story. I was sitting around and I remembered this thing that I had, and it was like this gold plate. And it was like pressed gold, like a coin, but like a very thin coin, and it was meant to be like mounted, so on like a harder surface, like leather, and that was like my rank, I guess, and my consularship. And I remember my clothes. The other thing about my clothes is my pants essentially were something the equivalent of a kilt, but made out of these very thin, strippy, I just remember all these weird, thin, strippy leather brown things that kind of ended in a little point. And they had a little rivet at the bottom of it. And it was like a bronze rivet, but each one was, I think, a wolf. And this patch maybe had a wolf-ish in it too. And some sort of red blanket that hooked not on the thing, but the thing and the blanket hooked on another thing, and it was like to keep you warm. If you had a good one, you had a hood. But really liked rounding up soldiers and commanding on the spot whoever I needed to. Was pretty proud of that. And remember doing it in the desert a lot, but I had horse after horse. It wasn't, I just remember delivering letters, like the movie The Postman, you know, kind of like that. So, recently, I've had my most recent and most vague, probably because it's the oldest memory, and I was, I believe this time a guy again, I believe, but I remember my skin being dark, like a black man dark, and thin, like my thinner bones, I guess, in general. And being somewhere where I was in an empire, but not of the look of the people of the palace. And the people of the palace had these beards that looked like hair. And they were, I don't know, square. And it was hard to tell the difference between their head hair and their face hair. And I kind of had a different look going at the time. Like I said, darker skin. And my main thing in life was honestly to I loved sitting around this palace, and I recalled I was watching this Egyptian thing on TV of the Temple of Osiris, I believe, and they were looking at the ceiling and then comparing it to how it used to look. And then that kind of triggered in me a memory of a similar palace that was less ornate on the ceiling, but it was very, very high, like higher than the Temple of Osiris ceilings. And a lot of white and a lot of blue. And I want to say some sort of Persian-ish empire. and I'm thinking almost Cyrus the Great, Syria. Very old. I've seen a temple in Iraq, downtown that some American soldiers were going through, and I'm kind of suspicious that that's the empire. And from what I understand, that was Cyrus the Great's coronation ramp and some sort of ancient Arc de Triomphe, but like part of a temple. So I think it might have been Cyrus the Great's empire, and my job was to do math. And I had these like little tablets or whatever that I did, probably with cuneiform, I think. And I remember the stuff around the ceiling wasn't hieroglyphs, but it was kind of similar. I've seen Minoan stuff that's kind of similar. And then I loved sitting around this big statue of I think it was like a lion, and I like lazily hung around this lion and just enjoyed my life. I mean, it just enjoyed this wonderful life. Because I didn't have to work in the fields or anything like that. My job was math. And I did math by powers. So I'd break everything down into its roots, 2s and 3s and stuff like that, and I'd write it down on this little table, and I could just look real quick. And, you know, I almost vaguely can remember comments like, well, do it again. Do it again. I want to make sure, double sure. And then I just look down and it's like, yep, just did it again. Everything's gravy. Wait, yep, checked all the columns. Everything's gravy. I'm going to go back to, whenever your majesty's done with me, I'm going to go back to laying up and looking at these wonderful, wonderful ceilings that you have and enjoying this wonderful smelling palace and green plants growing all around this big statue. Very wonderful life. That was nice. So anyway, so that's my 4 reincarnation stories that I'm adding to the mix to our dead channel. Hopefully YouTube's new algorithm doesn't kill this, but it probably will. But anyway, for the record, that was fun. I'm John from Crazy Town Productions. I like Zero these days. Anyway, that was neat.